In the Age of Discovery, England was dealing with two issues: the War of the Roses and the Lancastrian phase of the 100 Years' War. In the Domination DLC for EU4, England can make a choice between focusing on the British Isles and colonization, or focusing on reforging the Angevin Empire, with further conquests beyond that. The choice presented, though, is not necessarily a choice that is mutually exclusive. There's no reason why England can't enforce its rightful claim to France's throne while also claiming all of Britain for itself. In fact, England can do both simultaneously, using some old strategies. England can even take down the Holy Roman Empire if politics swing their way appropriately. In England's Age of Discovery, I'll be uniting the Isles, demoting France to the status of duchy, and dismantling the Holy Roman Empire before 1500. If you're a very old EU4 player like me, you'll be extremely familiar with the strategy that lets us do this. When we get into the game, the first thing to do is look for friends. I always go for Castile, Burgundy, and Portugal. You don't need all three, but you need at least two of them. Burgundy will usually rival you, but if they don't, they're pretty good since you can also try your hand at the Burgundian inheritance. Please do note that it is not necessary to have Burgundy, and you'll soon see why. They're just a nice bonus. Next, release Normandy and grant them all the land you have on the continent, including Calais. Then, release Gascony and put both on scutage. You can also divert trade, but Gascony's trade isn't really all that useful to you. Might as well though. We're doing this to ensure France can't gain any war score on us, and also so that France won't sit on the coast, making a landing almost impossible. Do a parliament debate, and if you can get the support the war effort debate, take it. We're doing this for the war exhaustion reduction and stability. Go ahead and do your estates as you would normally. I'd recommend giving out the primacy of the nobility because we need military points desperately. If you didn't get the support the war effort debate, take the clerical inward focus privilege to help keep war exhaustion down, but to be honest, you don't particularly need it. I chose not to take it in this run. Take the raise an army mission and get in position to conquer Ireland. Yes, that's right, we're gunning it straight for Ireland. Attack whichever Irish minor nation which has no alliance with Scotland and declare on as many as you can each month. Co-belligerent every Irish nation so long as Scotland never gets called in. Any Irish minors that ally exclusively with Scotland and which you can't get to war with will go for later. As you annex Irish nations, continue declaring war on more, using your whole army split into small stacks to siege efficiently. One thing you have as England in your national ideas is infantry combat ability, meaning you'll be able to beat pretty much any Irish nation by just having better troops. Immediately stack wipe every army, then station soldiers to siege them down. At some point, you'll get the surrender of Maine event. Do not surrender Maine, and instead going to war with France, and hope they don't have any horrifically strong allies. Even if they do, the strategy still works, it'll just take longer. We are now at war with France, but because all our land in France has been granted to vassals, who are on scutage, they are not involved in the war, and France has no way to cross into England. It's possible that if France allied someone like Castile, the Castilian navy and French navy together could beat you. If Castile was friends with France in your run, you might consider just restarting, to be honest. Either way, we're not dealing with France right now. We're just going to let them stew in Paris while we prepare to go fight. The nice thing about the surrender of Maine war is that it's a forced PU war, so if we win, we can put France into a personal union right off the bat. You can now take the 100 Years' War mission, and that lets you pick your missions. Take British missions, so we can do some fun stuff with colonies and with Ireland. You can probably already see where we're going with this strategy of being both Angevin and British. We can't do Angevin missions if we take British missions, but we sure can emulate the Angevin Empire while staying Britain. Funnily enough, despite being in the 100 Years' War, we can now end the French conflict, and this is because I technically have no land in mainland Europe. Obviously, this is quite ironic on account of the 100 Years' War literally being an ongoing conflict. As you're fighting in Ireland, you'll be ticking towards the War of the Roses. This is actually a good thing, since we need to get a new king, and this disaster will do exactly that. You'll also notice that if you're co-belligerating many Irish nations at once, you may end up getting a call for peace as you occupy the war leader, and have to wait to occupy the other smaller Irish nations to be able to peace out for all their land. This is why we took the Parliament issue to support the war effort. We can afford to eat some war exhaustion waiting during call for peace since we are able to shed war exhaustion even while being at war. Another important note here is to not core anything in Ireland. We're going to be releasing a subject here in Ireland via England's mission tree, saving us points and getting us a nice game-long modifier. Anyway, go ahead and take everything in Ireland except Scotland's allies. For me, that was Sligo and Kildare. Now we're going to get into position to fight Scotland itself, who is guaranteed by France. Remember that because we're already at war with France, they can't join a war to protect Scotland. At this point, I hired 2 mercenaries to handle Scotland and kept my regular army in Ireland to handle Scotland's allies. I'm using mercenaries on Scotland to save manpower, given that I'm already almost out. At this point, the War of the Roses will fire too. If you get an heir at any point while waiting for the War of the Roses, I'd recommend disinheriting or birding. The War of the Roses is one of the best disasters you can get in this game. You get a new king, hopefully one with good stats, and once you finish the disaster, you get prestige and stability. Use those mercenaries you just hired to handle the pretenders, again to save manpower, and just keep stack wiping pretenders until the disaster is over. I chose to fight using my manpower army a little bit, and then just consolidated them to make more space for mercenaries. Once it's over, you get a stability and 50 prestige. You can also complete the War of the Roses mission, giving another stability and an aggressive expansion modifier, which is actually going to be very important in the near future. It lasts until the end of the Age of Discovery too. You also will get the House of Tudor event right after, which gives another stability and reasonably good heir. England, after a period of immense instability, becomes perhaps the most stable place in Europe afterwards. It's pretty nice. Anyway, let your mercenaries reinforce a bit and maybe even wait until military tech 4 if you want, and then declare war on Scotland for subjugation. I had the Lollards rise up while I was at war, so I finished my siege of Dumfries, then went to fight them in York. Again, the mercenaries are doing most of the heavy lifting on account of my almost depleted manpower. I'm definitely losing a lot of money, but I can sell more crown land if I'm desperate for money, and the burgher loans don't have much interest. Go ahead and separate peace the Irish nations and then hit the Conquer Ireland mission. This gives you the option to release Ireland as a personal union, and guess what? That union has cores on all of Ireland, so that means you get all of Ireland without needing to pay any points. Awesome. You even get a cool modifier both for releasing Ireland and for completing the Act of Parliament. The direct rule modifier isn't nearly as good as the personal union modifier, alongside not having to worry about coring Ireland. It's definitely the way to go. The war with Scotland should be child's play at this point. I'd recommend that when you vassalize Scotland, you make them revoke their core on man, so your subject won't have the has a core opinion modifier. It helps a little bit with getting them loyal. Since I can assure you, Scotland will not be loyal. At this point, you now own all of Britain except the Isles, which were Scotland's vassal. Scotland has cores on them, so we'll get that land for them later once the truce is up. Beyond that, you effectively control the entirety of the British Isles now, which means we can swap our focus back to France and her allies. In my game, France's only ally was Brittany. The way to get Brittany out of the war is to just blockade them until they wipe peace. With that, the war is now a one-on-one, England against France. I have Tech 4 and France does too. I have a discipline advisor, and my national ideas give me infantry combat ability, but France has way more troops on account of their vassals. Nonetheless, I'm hoping that my superior quality will let me win. I landed my troops in Calais and marched south to Paris. Yeah, I lost. That's okay though, I just consolidated and hired more mercenaries. I reorganized the army, put it in Calais again, and fought in Champagne. This time I won and went right for Paris. I then got Tech 5 but didn't change troop types since I'm in the middle of a war. At this point something interesting happened. The Burgundian inheritance happened. I didn't get it since Burgundy chose to stay independent, but this did mean Burgundy was at war with France now. They even called me in, which I accepted, but only because I knew I wouldn't actually be involved due to already being at war with France. With that happening, I am now guaranteed to beat France since Burgundy and I, combined, will destroy them. The only thing I wonder is whether or not I could have won this war without Burgundy's help. My thought is yes, since I now have a tech advantage and higher quality troops, with about equal army size to France. I'm pretty sure Burgundy being in the war was not something that tipped it into winning. I think it was a winning war to begin with. In theory, if you expect France to win against Burgundy, you can wait until France puts Burgundy to a personal union, and then put France to a personal union yourself in order to get both countries as union members. But I wasn't confident that France could win, so I chose to put France to a union as soon as I could. Oh, also, Henry Tudor died, so I guess we're staying with the York family. I had a new heir named Henry, but this one was not the same Tudor Henry. Burgundy next was attacked by Austria, and for this call to arms, I declined. It hurts to decline calls to arms, but I don't want to jeopardize my war with France, so sorry Burgundy, but you're doomed against Austria. France came to fight me in Chartres, but I beat them again thanks to my high quality units. I also stack wiped 11,000 men in Picardy afterwards. France got the free cannons from their mission tree thanks to Jean Bureau, which I immediately stack wiped right when they spawned. I bet that was painful for France. I occupied Orleans, and with that, Paris was willing to surrender. Now look, the aggressive expansion here is kinda high, but that's fine. We're done going to war for a long time now. There'll be time for it to go away, and since I'm friends with Castile and Portugal, the aggressive expansion shouldn't cause a coalition to actually declare war. In order to really solidify my safety, I also allied Austria. With the Austrians and all of Iberia to keep me safe, I'm certain the coalition will not attack me. While waiting for the coalition to dissipate, I'm going to annex Normandy and Gascony just to reduce Scotland's liberty desire. The Scottish truce will be up relatively soon, and I don't want some big scary nation supporting their independence. Near the end of 1461, I embraced the Renaissance and grabbed Admin Tech 5. I took influence ideas to start, considering I've got quite a few subjects. In 1461, I put France into a union, conquered all of Britain, and I'm ahead of time on every technology with a reasonable income. I definitely need to replace those mercenaries with regular troops sometime in the future, but for now, feeling good. By 1464, Scotland became loyal, and all I need to do now is make France loyal to secure my power. In 1465, Normandy was integrated, and in 1466, my truce with the Isles ended. This meant I could attack them right away before they can join the coalition, and complete my conquest of the British Isles. Once I get to admin tech 10, I can form Britain, but remember that Britain is an endgame tag. I want to do some tag switching later on, so I likely will not be forming Britain. Similarly to Castile, England has access to Britain's entire mission tree even without forming Britain, so I have no reason to form Britain outside of ideas. In 1467, I paid for loyalists in France to make them loyal, and thus my realm was secure. This is about where you should be by 1467 in this run, but to be clear, we are not done yet. This run is just getting started. The next period of time will be composed of lowering autonomy and integrating subjects like Gascony and Scotland. If you intend to form Great Britain, don't bother annexing Scotland since you can get them for free as Britain. I'm going to get my crown land back by seizing crown land wherever possible and developing whenever I have excess monarch points. I want to get rid of the villenage privilege the nobility has so I can progress to my mission tree. With that mission, we get some prosperity and development cost modifiers, although unfortunately I don't plan to develop much more now that I've spent so much to get my crown land up. Something pretty funny happened as well with Corsica. They were freed by Crimea, which made them a steppe horde since released nations take on the government of the nation that freed them. I was able to vassalize them, which meant I had a steppe horde vassal stuck on an island with very little flat land. Just kind of a funny moment. I could have used Corsica's claims to conquer a bit of Italy, but I wasn't looking to embolden the coalition, so I left it alone. I got called into a war against Morocco and Tunis by Castile, and I had an idea. I could occupy Tunis and give it to Corsica, but unfortunately Castile ended the war before I could separate peace to give Corsica that cheeky piece of land. It could have been kind of funny, but maybe next time. In 1479, I got Admin Tech 7 and picked my second idea group. I grabbed expansion ideas. The reason I didn't do exploration was, first of all, I can't because of already having taken influence ideas, but also because I'm friends with Castile and Portugal. I'll just ask for their maps when I need to explore, and I'll use expansion ideas to be able to colonize faster. I'll get exploration ideas from my third idea group most likely. I got a parliament debate to give me a diplomatic advisor with a 90% discount, and you bet I was going to promote him to level 5 and generate immense amounts of diplomatic points. I'm still working on influence ideas and I'm falling behind at diplomatic tech on account of doing all that development, but I can make up for it with this advisor. This whole time of peace, which has been on for about 2 decades now, I've had my diplomats automatically increasing opinion with outraged countries to try and get rid of the coalition, and indeed the coalition did eventually disappear. There's a pretty big thorn in my side with the Empire, and that's the Dutch. The lowlands are a highly developed region with lots of control over the English Channel. I'll have to fight the Empire every single time I try to invade even the smallest Dutch nation. One thing I didn't show off in my Castile guide was how to dismantle the Empire extremely easily. In that guide, I basically just conquered the entire Empire during the League War to effectively end the Empire, but here is England are going to dismantle the Empire right from the outset using a very simple technique. I will be temporarily allying every elector and then occupying the Emperor's capital to dismantle the Empire. I'm not sure if it's common knowledge or not, but the requirement to occupy every elector's capital to dismantle the Empire actually also includes just allying them. You do not need to actually be at war with every elector, which is what most people think of for ending the Empire. I'm not going to royal marry any of the electors, since I want to immediately abandon these relationships once I destroy the Empire. With the electors allied, I'm going to go after the Emperor, who I presume was Austria, my ally. I checked who the Emperor was, and turns out it was Cleves. I checked the ledger later on, and Austria lost the Empire in 1458. I didn't even notice. This makes dismantling the Empire very easy since I don't have to even fight someone strong like Austria. I have no CB on Cleves, but I can attack any member of the Empire to get to war with the Emperor, such as Burgundy. Unfortunately, Burgundy does not get along with the Emperor, and therefore they won't defend them. That means I'm going to have to use the best CB in the game to attack Cleves. I can tank the stability loss and the aggressive expansion, since once the war is over, the Empire's death will be well worth both of these consequences. I'm going to just call in every ally I have, and thus the war has begun in 1483. The war to dismantle the Empire is kind of anticlimactic though, since there are no actually powerful opponents to deal with here. In 1484, Cleves fell, and thus the Empire was dismantled. I'm going to vassalize the small Dutch countries that I can, just to avoid getting too much aggressive expansion, and I'll conquer whatever bits I can't vassalize. Being able to control the lowlands will shoot my income through the roof, since I'll be able to control the English Channel completely. I vassalized Utrecht and pushed their claims to Holland to control the rest of the trade. Burgundy still has lots of land in the lowlands, but they're up next to connect my lowland vassals to my Norman land. The war with Burgundy in 1489 was pretty simple, and I gave western Burgundy to France while getting the rest of the coastal lowlands split between me and Gelre. These are my borders in April of 1492. I consider this pretty good, although I could take Brittany and more land in northern Germany. I'm not planning to just blob endlessly though, since I want to do some overseas trade companies with this campaign. We'll see what happens though, I may change my mind. Speaking of which, it's time to colonize and get into Africa. I'm a bit late to the party compared to Castile and Portugal, but I'm going to start colonizing now, starting with Arguin. I'm sending a small merc company down there to manage the colony. For my colonization of the New World, I'm planning to make unions on Castile and Portugal eventually by using favors to get my dynasty on their thrones. There's no guarantee it'll work out since unions outside of missions can be fickle, but I think it'll end up working out. By the beginning of the 1500s, I was working on vassalizing Britain since they were just barely in range for vassalization, and I was annexing the lowlands vassals. I'm also annexing Ireland, and that modifier you get for creating the Ireland Union does stick around even after annexing me. So that's why it's so much better to make the Union compared to directly ruling Ireland. The Reformation began in Bremen in 1505, and with that, the Age of Discovery is coming to a close. I have one more decade of things to do before the next age. I'm going to do a couple missions now to pass time. I grabbed Strengthen the Kingdom, Mainland Alliances, and issued the Royal Warrant. I had to deal with the Dutch Revolt disaster, which I really didn't want to deal with, so instead of trying to get the accepted cultures I'd need to make it happen, I just granted enough provinces to Friesland to make the disaster go away, and then made Friesland transfer trade power. This will work for me for now since I can get the trade power I need even if I don't get the taxes of production myself. I grabbed the Royal Marines reform since, I'm Britain. I was able to found the Royal Navy at that point, which gave me an explorer, so it turns out I don't even need Portuguese and Castilian maps. I got an heir onto Castile's throne with favors, and hopefully that will work out. I also got an heir for Portugal. I finished integrating Ireland, passed another parliament issue that gave me more stability. I managed to just barely vassalize Brittany by developing a little bit, getting them to max trust, and getting all the diplomatic reputation I could, and the year is on 1513. The Age of Discovery ends in 2 years, and with Brittany, this was the last bit of expansion I did this era. Austria called me to some war, I just focused on more parliament issues like colonial ventures and the Sugar Act. With that, the Age of Discovery has come to an end, and the era of Reformation is upon us. As England, we immediately get a slight negative modifier to religious unity and heretic tolerance. The question is, what England will get up to for this era. Will they stick to Catholicism, or go with Anglicanism? I'm certain that I'll be going on a conquest binge off in Africa and South Asia, but what about the New World? Will England claim the Iberian thrones? We'll have to see. For now, if you follow this guide, you should be able to rule at least all of Britain, even if you don't go for the French Union. But being able to take down France this early without compromising on British conquests is a huge boost for England, and you can easily take down the Empire with some convenient alliances, even if Austria is still the Emperor. If Austria is leading the Empire, use your friendship with Iberia to win, and if need be, ally Poland or something. Point is, you can take down the Empire, which gives easy access to the lowlands. Controlling trade in the English Channel is quite important for making good money, so it's an important step. Anyway, that's the video. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for your time.